Folks, given the fact that you all waited patiently, we're going to start at 5 minutes after 6. Closed session. Another couple of minutes and then start with our regular meeting. Thank you. You may be seated. Just time on my Connor to tell us a little bit about that. Thank you all, members of the board, members of the community, for allowing us to come and present the court tonight. This is the last people lost for that. So we're glad to finish out. Introduce my team. I've got Ted Ball there. This is actually an all sophomore group. So we haven't graduated yet, so we're not quite junior yet, an all sophomore group, here for dinner tonight. So I've got, Cadet Tyler Ball, one of my returning cadets, has done quite a few things, interested there. He's actually a flight commander and a flight sergeant, so he's a flight leader this semester. Looking for him to continue to do great things. Next one is Cadet Sequoia Wilson. She's also been one of my hard chargers. She's done a lot of our color guards, fitness events. She's one of our strong academic leaders in the class here as well. Trying to hold on to her, but she's thinking about transferring to different schools. So maybe I'll be putting proposals for you to keep her making those. Thanks there as a Cadet Vega. So the sophomore, he's also one of my leaders coming up. He's been working as a flight sergeant in the class and doing a great job on those things, helping the new cadets that are coming along behind him on those things, making them sharp and ready to go. Next in is Cadet Bryson Kreider. Bryson's done a great job. He does a lot of anything fitness that we need going on. He does that. He's also been a strong member of our marksmanship team. He's actually got a marksmanship badge right below his ribbon. So he's qualified to wear that badge on our air rifle marksmanship team. He's been doing very well with that this season. So we're looking to see what he's going to do for us next year. I've got two of these are also going to Cadet Leadership Camp this summer. So that's one of the things that we couldn't do without your all support and funding to be able to go to Cadet Leadership Camp. We're going to go to Blue Ridge YMCA in Black Mountain, North Carolina. We'll have about a week there of hanging out, working on some drill, working on some PT, physical training, fitness. And I think this year, I don't know how we did this in Air Force Camp, but we're actually going to have some Navy SEALs that are going to be there. So they're going to show us a little bit of what their training would look like. If you all want to come down to that part of it, we're glad to come down there and work out. All right. So this is my team. We thank you all again for all the support that we've had throughout this year. We managed to do two amazing trips. I think I talked about the one in December that we did out in the North Carolina area. This spring, we actually did one. We traveled to University of Tennessee, visited their ROTC program, hung out with the Tennessee Air National Guard, got to tour KC-135, and some of the armament and also their metal fabrication shops back there. And then, of course, we've got a recreation piece, looked all of that. So we went to Crystal Caverns and spent some time at Magnificent Farm there in Bristol, Tennessee, and did a little bit of activities there. Thank you all so much for allowing us to be out here this year.
Colonel Thomas, on behalf of the board, I'd like to just thank your cadets and all the other ROTC units in our county for adding to our meetings each month with the colors. Thank you very much. Job well done. Give them a round of applause.
A couple of weeks ago, we had members of the board that were there supporting that event, so we thank you all for being there to get this back. We have one person this time that said they're intending to go. I know we've got more than that, but I'm the one that made it to the event. Regardless if it's just one, it was important and a real lot for them and for us.
Thank you. This time, board members, you have been provided with copies of the minutes from our April 22nd, 2024 meeting. And I would now seek a motion for approval of those minutes or any adjustments if needed. Thank you, Mr. Sedmeyer.
Second.
And thank you, Mr. Abernathy. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the April minutes, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. This time we will consider adjustments to and approval of the agenda for tonight. There is, I'll recognize Dr. Stover for that. That's on the new business category of our agenda, number 8. Are there other adjustments to the minutes the agenda as presented?
Under number 2, under unfinished business, the heavy agenda tonight, could we move that to the June 3rd?
All right, and that is the discussion on the Catawba County Board of Education evaluation results. Mr. Settlemeyer has made the motion that be tabled to the June 3rd meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Settlemeyer?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Motion, do I have a second? Motion and a second. Is there discussion before we call the question on that?
The only reason, the fact that we have a fairly heavy agenda tonight, or what's the reason for postponing that?
Yeah, we got, 30 policies on here, and I think giving more time would be better for this subject. I think we could probably do that on June 3rd.
I think it is important that we have time to discuss that thoroughly.
Thank you for that. Okay, we have a motion and second. All in favor of moving unfinished business number 2 to the June 3rd agenda, signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. So we will move that item to the June 3rd meeting. All right, so with removal of number 8 on new business, number 2 on unfinished business, any others? Hearing none, I would then ask that we entertain a motion to approve the agenda as adjusted.
I make the motion, we approve the agenda as adjusted.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second that motion.
All right, and second by Dr. Barnett. All in favor of the approval of the agenda as adjusted, signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you, board. This time, that brings us to our superintendent's report. So,
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, members of the board. I'd like to invite you out front. We have 3 separate recognitions tonight. We've got some staff and we have some students. So we're excited about that. Okay, our first set of recognitions this evening will be our Employees of the Month. Thank you, Mr. Geddes, for being here again and sponsoring our plaque and our gift certificates for our valued members of our staff. Tonight, we're going to start with our Administrator of the Month, Ms. Shannon Holler from Bunker Hill High School. Please come on up. Ms. Holler and her team does a great job and have showed a lot of leadership, and especially during our time of absence here recently with Ms. Holleran. She's giving birth or has given birth. So we're just super thrilled with our team there, and we're thankful for all that you do. I see you brought your husband tonight. Thank you for all you do too. The sheriff's deputy with us in our county. So thank you for that, Ms. Holler from Bunker Hill High School. Our next employee of the month, and you'll see her again very soon, is our teacher assistant of the month, which is Miss Pressler from Mountain View. She's also our teacher assistant of the year for the Catawba County Schools. Come on up, Miss Pressler. Thank you for all you do. She's been a great leader, bus driver TA for 19 years, wonderful leader of our TA organization. And we went to see her at Mountain View, and then secretly we found out later that night she was also going to be awarded with TA of the Year. So that's also fitting. So 2 awards in one day, probably overwhelming, but well deserved. Thank you so much. And then our Certified Employee of the Month, which is Mrs. Blair Miller, our teacher, CTE technology teacher. And you're going to see here in a second too, because she is the mastermind, pun intended, for our mechanical minds. Mrs. Blair Miller. So you've gotten to get to know Mrs. Miller through Mechanical Minds and all the grants she writes and outstanding work she does with her students. But the other part of her other job is also phenomenal. The teacher she is in the classroom, the leadership she demonstrates. We went in the other day to celebrate her and just outstanding activities, the things that you do with your students. We're thankful for you, Mrs. Miller, and just great leadership both in and out of the classroom. So we'll get a picture with everyone. Let's give them one last round of applause.
All right, so nice segue in here to Mechanical Minds. So the St. Stephen's High School Mechanical Minds team is composed of students from several schools in the county. This team competed in the first robotics competition, which is an internationally recognized competition. This competition challenges students to design, build, and compete with robots. This experience fosters skills in engineering, teamwork, and problem solving. So this team had quite the journey this year. They competed strongly in 2 regional events in March, and then they were invited to the state competition in East Carolina in April. The team partnered with Alliance One, and together they won the state competition. Everyone on Alliance One was invited to the world competition. So they had 2 days. I think 2 days to secure funds and transportation and everything to Houston, Texas. So I don't know how you did it, but you pulled it off. It was amazing. And then, so they competed against 600 teams there. And after their performance at the Worlds, they're now ranked in the top 18% in the U.S. and the top 16% in the world. So I have Coach Blair Miller come up, and then we're going to recognize him.
Our school, may I say one thing? Okay, the team was started in 2017 as a team out of St. Stephen's High School. This year, we decided to open our doors to other schools. And so what you see here are 7 schools represented. So we have students from Maiden, we have Bunker Hill, we have Ford, we have Challenger, we have Discovery, we have Hickory High, and we have St. Stephen's. So it was neat to see those students come together. We are primarily a young team. You'll notice that only 4 of us will be graduating. And when we leave here in a moment, we'll go have senior signing day for them. But we hope that we can continue. And so that is our hope. We need funding though. So please keep that in mind. I will make that plea. All right. So first, Caitlin Barger. Mr. Powell DeHart. Mr. Dayton Farnsworth. Miss Sage Fields. Mr. Josiah Flores. Mr. David Ford. Mr. Oliver Ford. Miss Wendy Garcia Lopez. Mr. Jared Humphrey. Mr. Austin Laws. Mr. Noah Loss. Mr. Elijah Miller. Mr. Colin Murdoch. Miss Maria Nolte. Miss Harper Pyatt. Miss Kara Ramsey. Miss Rebecca Reyes Mejia. Miss Catherine Sane. Mr. Jacob Scherzinga. Miss Jalen Sherrar. Mr. Lance Thick. Miss Lexi Thompson. And Mr. Kirk Wang.
Also, we've also got a certificate for the coach, Blair Miller, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity you provided these students. So awesome job.
For him on this side, you guys over here, you're mechanically minded. Good job. See me? Are you up here?
Also want to just real briefly, I see a lot of parents out there with mechanical minds. I know how quickly you all had to scurry to get funds and do all of that. So thank you all for all of that. I know that was not easy. So thank you for your support as well. Great job, y'all.
Mr. Stocks, principal, thank you for your support there and being here tonight. So, yeah. All right. So we're going to transition a little bit. So if Mechanical Minds parents, if you want to follow, they're going to do a little ceremony in the other where you were in conference room C. All right. Go ahead and bring it. Now we're going to transition to the elementary world. Okay. So next up, like to recognize the Startown Elementary archery team. So they've competed in, you correct me if I'm getting in this wrong here, Coach, in 9 tournaments this school year, and they won them all. So they actually are undefeated in any North Carolina host archery tournament since the beginning of the program in 2019. They have won the North Carolina State Bullseye Championship for 5 consecutive years. Their donated trophy case is actually pretty full and have no room for this year's trophy cases. So another shameless plug here. I think Robert's in here and Dan Moore. Maybe need a trophy case going on in Startown. So, they also locked up the female division. They took 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place on the podium. In 2021, Startown added the IBO 3D into their practices. This is where archers shoot at 3D animals from different distances. So they've also won that 3D championship 3 consecutive years and are undefeated. So those are pretty impressive stats. So let's give them a round of applause. So Coach Gabe Irvin, I'm gonna have you come up and let's recognize some.
All right. As Mr. Westmoreland said, we've got a pretty successful team, and a lot of that comes from the support that we get from the district with Dr. Stover and on down, and our school with Ms. Stodden and Ms. Severe. We get it from our coaches. We got a good collaboration of coaches. We have Ms. Warren, Ms. Irvin, John Warren over here. Good collaboration of them, and also the support of our parents. So without them, none of this would be able to do this. But we do have slim pickings tonight. I think a lot of our students are already on summer break, so we got a couple of them here. So we'll recognize the ones that we do have here. First of all, we have Mia Alavelo. She was the state champion for the Bullseye division for the girls. So and then we have Eden Robertson. Eden, you can come on up. She was our state champion in the female division of 3D. So both of those girls were the female champions in their discipline. And as you were saying, this is also a team sport. Can't do it without all the other scores that go in, not just our champions. So we have Hudson Bill. Gigi Irvin. Grayson Kennan. Eve Ross. And Corbin Woodring. And Mr. Warren's going to tell you a little bit about our next student.
Okay, so we have a individual accomplishment here that's it's pretty major, bigger than any kind of state award. So Annabelle Carter won the IBO 3D challenge. And so with the school system, you have the 3D, which is where they do the animals, and it's very structured. You have 6 animals, everybody knows the distance, you practice months at a time. For the IBO, she actually, just like the professionals on TV, and so they have 30 animals, they're all set out, you don't know what animal, you don't know what the distance is, you have to judge it, and then you get 1 arrow. And if he hits bullseye, you get the high score, and if you miss, you get the lowest, right? So with her score, she was very relaxed and calm and used her skills. And a lot of times they get stressed out doing archery because you have expectations, your team has expectations, parents have expectations, coaches have expectations. And so it can be very stressful. And we preached all year that if you'll just go in and do the best you can that day and just use your skills, and everything it'll all come to an end, and the score will be what it is. And if you did a good job, it'll show. But she went in with no expectations and did the best she could do that day, and happened to be the best. So she is the first North Carolina world champion for IBO 3D. Oh yeah. And just for the record, she technically is Startown. She's on Maiden's team by default due to divisions because it's 6th grade. So
That tournament was in Louisville at the biggest tournament with over 15,000 archers.
And to give you the idea of how well she did, North Carolina has a multi-national champion and world champion archer. She actually came to practice with us before we went up to Louisville. Natalie Bell, she's in Burke County. I don't know if y'all have seen her in the news or what, but she's won nationals. She won it in elementary school as an individual. She won it in middle school, and she won it in high school last year. And she came in second place this year. And she shot a 291, and Annabelle shot a 295. So that tells you. So it wasn't a luck. I mean, it was true skill. So we're proud of her.
If we'll get them back up, Marty, go ahead. And also, I want to, if we can get to recognize the coaches as well. I know lots of time and effort, support of our kids. So, Coach John Warren, go ahead up. You head on up there too, Coach Laura Warren. Laura, there's Laura. Coach Gabe Irvin, and then Coach Jen Irvin.
And again, we thank all of those students that we recognized, but the mechanical minds and the archery. That's very impressive to see what the young people are doing. Great work. The next section that we will come to is our public comment. And just momentarily, I will turn that over to our attorney, Ms. Davis, to conduct. Do remind the public that we want to hear what you have to say. Public comment is for you to give us feedback from your perspective. We will listen to you respectfully and take what you have into consideration. We ask that you afford each other that same privilege and that everyone be respectful during this time. And Ms. Davis, I'll turn that over to you.
I would like to remind each of you that we have 6 people who have signed up for public comments. Each person will have 3 minutes to address the board. There will be a timer on each of the screens, and Mr. Sharp will operate that. And we would remind you, we're asking for the topics to be disclosed, and I wanted to remind you that our policy prohibits individual personnel matters from being discussed in open session. So if that is an issue that you have come here to discuss in open session at a meeting, the proper procedure for you to make is to actually contact the superintendent. And if you have a grievance that you wish to file, that is the proper forum. Personnel matters and student matters are confidential unless there is an exception under the law. So I wanted to remind each of you of that. That said, I will start with the first person who has signed up, and that is Charlie Shepard, who is going to speak about Back to Our Roots.
Thank you. I just want to say, I think I'll just decline to speak tonight. I'll just listen. Thank
Thank you very much. Out-of-school suspension is a punishment for parents who have to find alternate childcare or leave a teenager at home alone. Out-of-school suspension is a punishment to teachers who have to catch a child up who has been out from anywhere from 3 to 10 days while continuing to teach new material to the class and also being asked to make that child proficient and get growth. Out-of-school suspension is often not a punishment to the child themselves. I would like to suggest that Catawba County look at some alternatives to out-of-school suspension, such as having them do 2 hours of community service for each day of out-of-school suspension for student. And we have a lot of clubs that already do community service, so we already have relationships with organizations that would let teenagers come in. For those who either could not or do not want to do community service, I would love to see an out-of-school suspension academy in each feeder so that they're close enough that I could go and see them during my planning period. They're close enough that their counselor could come and see them. They would be expected to continue to participate in work, add into my class through Google Meet. There would be an adult monitoring what they're doing. And we could also have more connection with the family and set up any supports that that child needs, because it is often the most vulnerable students that end up with out-of-school suspension. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. And again, I will echo what Ms. Davis said. If any of you that have declined to speak, if there are matters, especially if it's a personnel related thing, we do encourage you to further the superintendent's office and go through those proper channels. And I assure you they'll be given due consideration. This time, board, if you will look, we are coming to our consent items. There are 6 items under that category, and we have received the information about those in the packet. So Dr. Stover, any information you'd like to add to that?
No, sir. We are looking for your approval of those items this evening.
Board members, are there questions about any of the specific consent items? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent items. Thank you. Ms. Teague has made that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And second by Mr. Settlemeyer. Any comment? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the consent items as listed, please signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Under our unfinished business category, having previously removed number 2 and moved that into our June agenda, that leaves one item: consideration of proposed amendments to board policies regarding public comments. And we had introduced that at our April meeting. So Ms. Davis, I'll recognize you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you recall, at our last meeting, there was two meetings ago, there was some questions about a particular point in our public comments and public hearing sections relating to substitute speakers. And the chairman placed on the agenda the discussion of that particular section. And I had drafted some additional language to clarify substitute speakers and speaking upon someone's behalf, to include the language that says, among other things, in section D3H of policy 2.3000 and section B9 of policy 2.3100, which is public participation at board meetings, that we add to the phrase, an individual cannot speak on another individual's behalf, adding the clarification, however, a speaker may cite or present the, and I said that so country, cite, cite or present the works of another individual, organization, or agency, as long as the speaker cites the name of the work, the name of its creator, and provides the board with a copy of the work or with a full citation of where the entire work can be located. That is the language that I proposed then, and I think the board at the time at our last meeting wanted time to think about that language and possibly discuss it further. Everything else would remain the same.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Board members, I know Ms. Davis sent this to us earlier, and hopefully you've had a chance to look over it. There were two concerns primarily with the language of the original policy. One was using strict interpretation, the way the policy was written, it would essentially exclude you from being able to cite any work by anybody, because technically those are words from somebody else. So the language that Ms. Davis has included, I think, clarifies that, and it does open up. The one gentleman several meetings ago quoted a document from 1647 that he wanted to use. That would fall under this clarification. Strictly speaking, under the old policy, technically that would not have been. So what is the, any other comments or observations from the board?
I think one of the questions we had at the time also regarded a letter that was going to be read from an author that was disallowed. So would that be covered under this also, that could be allowed? Thank you.
Now, as long as
Well,
somebody
okay.
emails a letter,
Yeah,
that's considered a work.
that's what I was getting ready to
I
say.
mean, we're basically re-going about what we
Yeah.
made the policy for.
Yeah, well,
Recreating it as long as it's emailed. Is that what we're doing here?
actually, they could provide it at the meeting even.
But the letter that was actually read was like a response. It wasn't actually like any type of, I guess, works.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna, works, I mean, any writing, that's, I'm making sure you understand, it would include any works by another person if it was a letter.
Okay, but that wasn't really, it was a response to the information
inquiry.
from
An
yeah.
inquiry. from
Yeah,
someone.
and someone was reading for that person.
If you wanted to restrict it, then you would have to say exclude a letter, or just say it was about, you could only reference books, laws, that kind of thing. But then you have artwork.
You said that they could speak on behalf of somebody. Now you're saying if I email you a letter, that's okay because then it's a work.
What I'm saying is the language that I was asked to clarify, an individual cannot speak on another individual's behalf. That was included because we had people at previous board members come in and say, I am speaking on behalf of so-and-so. And that's why that was.
Is that not the same though, as far as the email in response? Because they were responding and the person that was coming up here to speak was saying.
If they had something in writing from that person, they could cite it. They could cite it and read it. Going
That's
back,
confusing.
going back.
Come up and read the letter, was the author cannot be here tonight.
Yeah, she was reading it on their
Reading
behalf.
this letter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The situations we had before was not a letter being read. It was, I am speaking on behalf of someone. And what I am saying is this language, and you can change it to whatever you want it to say. The language that I proposed would include, actually, if you provided the letter, then it would include that person, that speaker that was here, presenting the letter to the board, the original letter, citing that letter and reading it. If it was a written work.
Right, but it was an opinion. It was an opinion what they were reading. It was just a response. So it was an opinion. It wasn't really like a.
And again, if you want to, it's up to the board whether to change any of the words here.
I would say, obviously, I think my difference in perspective on much of this issue with Ms. Teague and Mr. Settlemeyer is well known, but I do see the point here. To me, this is a slippery slope. Where does citing a published work start and just straight up talking on behalf of someone else, which I think is what the original policy was designed.
Well, you could add the word published work.
Yeah, I would, again, I don't think we need to have people speaking as a proxy for other people. If someone feels strongly enough that they want to contribute, in my opinion, come here and do it personally, I think would be the best way and be fairest to everyone involved. I would feel better if it was published. That would include, books, journals, magazines, those kind of things. It would not include an email that I sent to Mr. Settlemeyer and want him to read because I couldn't be here tomorrow. And again, just my thoughts on the matter.
I agree. I agree with what you said.
Would published works include artwork that Ms. Davis mentioned?
But I'm just getting ready to look.
But I think published works is open to definition too.
Well, and published in what form, I guess, the next question. But it just underscores my idea about that slippery slope.
I mean, I think there is a process to actually publish artwork, a legal process. I'm not familiar with it offhand, but I would if you wanted to make that clear that artwork is, you'd have to, if you want to exclude certain artwork, you'd have to define that portion. So otherwise, I think it would not necessarily include all artwork. I mean, is Michelangelo's artwork published?
And do published works include videos and podcasts?
I don't think
I'd just
so.
like to point out also that the letter that was proposed to be read was not an opinion. It was a letter from the author of the book we were under consideration.
Still her opinion. It was still her opinion.
She wrote the
She was,
book.
I know, but she was responding. It was an opinion of hers.
Again, and I think what Dr. Barnett brings up in Ms. Tigg's response just demonstrates how delicate and how tight the line on this is.
Because what Ms. Tigg shared with us is only her opinion.
You mean in the hearing?
Yes.
Right. And I think anybody is
public
entitled to
comment.
share their opinion as long as come here and do what we're asking.
Would it help to exclude opinion matter, instead of published works to say matters of opinion? Yeah, we don't want to, yeah. I mean, that seems to be what Ms. Teague was focusing on. I'm offering suggestions.
Someone else is reading it and the person is not here. What I was referring to is it was just a regular email. Like it's just like an email of somebody writing up something that was their opinion. Just because it just happened to be an author in this situation, it could still be anybody else's opinion that we have that could come up here and speak. So I'm not really, I don't really see this being a big deal as far as where we're going with this exactly. But I mean, I know that we still have to have our policies in place. So I'm still open to whatever.
Well, and in this case, it wasn't just an author, it was the author of the book that was under consideration. So I think that was relevant in that case.
Right. But the person was still speaking on behalf of what the author wrote in the email.
So were the people quoting from 1700 laws in the Bible.
Well, and also there were there were mentions of book review, well, I don't know, websites. So that's another, so websites, and I guess the point of requesting that someone cite where they're getting the information would be to give the board the opportunity to examine that original document to see if it was what the person was saying.
I definitely think we want it to be cited, and I think that's what the language you gave us does, allows it to be cited.
Again, I think maybe it's a little tighter definition of what published means,
Yeah.
but I think we're heading in the right direction. I definitely don't think, in my opinion, emails or private, correspondence between individuals should qualify. Is there a pleasure of the board on this matter as we? How do we proceed?
The objection to what we've been presented here.
I think the only objection as I see it is that still this language would allow an email correspondence from individual A to individual B to be read as long as it was cited. And in my opinion, I think we're looking for a higher standard than that. Something be published, be, I guess, artistically or literarily recognized rather than just a private correspondence between individuals. Otherwise, you got somebody speaking on proxy of another person.
Could, and I understand, Mr. Chair, where you're going with that, but when we talk about present the works, could we not narrow that down then or expand that to the point where it would just say, email exchanges excluded or something? Because, when we talk about works, I think about, something again that it goes into to say clear that it's not just an exchange of an email.
In my opinion, that would be a good way to further narrow it. Say, published, private correspondence excluded. If you added that, along with the published thing, and my way of looking at it would get us where we need to go. And again, I don't think, I guess I agree with Ms. King. I don't think it's not going to be something that comes up over and over and over. But I think we need to have language in case it does.
I would be prepared then to make a motion that we accept what has been presented, and can get Ms. Davis's opinion or wording on exactly what that, when we talk about present the works, that it would not just be an email exchange that somebody sent somebody. Not sure how that would go in there, but go as it is, minus being able just to send something in an email.
Ms. Davis, could you craft that language and have that ready for us
June 3rd.
at our June 3rd meeting? Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
I would also point out that just in sitting here, there are multiple definitions of publish. And one says it's a written work. Another says that it's the legal definition of publish. So there's a separate definition. So one of the things that the board can do is use a term and define the term, published as defined as, with regard to art law. And one of the definitions of publish means to give publicity to a work, to make a work available to the general public, which could include art. That's something that I just wanted to point out. So publish can have different meanings. I think if you use that term, which, and I understand that wasn't Mr. Abernathy's motion, but if you use that term, I think it would be important to define it.
Well, I think in those cases, it would be up to the board, and not necessarily just because I'm sitting here, but board chair to then to rule on the legitimacy of what published work we're looking at.
Okay.
And am I fair in saying that?
Well, also, maybe could even look at it at may cite or present the works of another individual excluding email exchanges, et cetera. Just making it clear it's not somebody just shooting an email somewhere and somebody says, well, I'm going to cite this email.
Again, I think we need to come back to the intent of this policy was to keep someone from speaking as a proxy for another individual.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as long as we keep that in mind, Ms. Davis will have language for our consideration at the June 3rd meeting, and maybe we're creeping up on this.
I would then be willing to retract my motion and make the motion then that we revisit this for the June 3rd meeting with it cleaned up to that language where we can see it.
Okay.
Mr. Abernathy has an amended motion on the floor to table this to June 3rd with the new language considered. Mr. Stedmeyer, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to table this until June 3rd, raise your hand. Thank you, board. And I know that's one of those things, it's like nailing Jell-O to a tree. But I appreciate your tenacity in this endeavor. That finishes our unfinished business category, and now we come to new business. Marty Sharp will speak to us on approval of for Chromebook replacements for our middle school. Mr. Sharp.
And hopefully this won't be Jell-O, although we've seen Jell-O on these Chromebooks before.
Actual Jell-O.
Actual Jell-O. All right, so board chair, members of the board, sent in front of you today to request the approval of 2,450 Chromebooks for the middle school students. The quote is in front of you, and my apologies for somewhat of a delay to get the quote. We've been trying to get the best pricing on the best unit we can. Our overall goal was to provide a decent device, a good device for middle school students. And I will say, I taught middle school for years. Middle school students have a tendency to, it's very difficult to find a device that doesn't somehow get damaged in some regard. So we wanted to make sure we looked at a rugged device. We had some good success with our high school devices that you approved. They were a 14-inch device. And so you will see, and I'll pass this around if you wanted to actually see it. But this is a 14-inch device. The other devices that we looked at were only 11-inch devices, and that's what they have been using for the past 5 years. These are they currently have the oldest Chromebooks we have in our district. They were slated to be replaced come this August. And we are looking at utilizing at-risk funds and technology funds for this model, a specific model for middle school. It will come with the device itself, a 4-year unlimited platinum warranty. So if Jell-O does get on it accidentally, it will be replaced. They will fix it, replace it for free. It does keyboard. I will say about this keyboard too, is we really like the keyboard. They do not pick that well. We have seen a large increase of keys picked off somehow, just magically out of a book bag. You know how that happens. These are kind of, I wouldn't say they're pickless, but it's very difficult to pick these keys off. It is a solid Chromebook altogether, and it does have power on both sides. That's another thing that our tech team really wanted to look at, is because when you have charging just on one side of the Chromebook, if it's damaged or something goes wrong, you lose all functionality of the Chromebook and it has to be sent in. So we want charging on both sides. Again, we're looking at a $479 price unit, device, warranty. I did forget, I was able to get the shells, which are typically about $25 a piece. We got those completely at no cost at all with this bundle. We are using, and I can pull that up real quick. We are using the technology state contract, DIT contract number 204A. This is what we used previously with our high school Chromebooks. And I'll do a real quick search, and you'll see, hopefully, that Trafera is on this list multiple times for multiple types of devices, including HP. Okay, I think I've went over everything on the logistics side. Any questions? Yes, Miss Carla could actually probably talk about that a little bit. Oh, it should. Yeah, there's actually multiple pages. Let me pull back up. Yeah, there's actually a second. Here's the. Hopefully you can see this. You'll see the white glove. There's a no cost white glove, asset tagging, no cost. The etching on these will actually be on the shell that gets on. And I believe you've probably seen the shells with the Catawba County School logo on it. That's the etching. You'll see the case hard shell is actually at a zero cost. We have the case installation, which is amazingly enough, as difficult as it is to get the case on and off of these units, and delivery. So that was the second page. My apologies for you not getting that second page. And then the total with tax. Sorry, sorry. I can make it a little larger there. Yeah, okay, so the lift gate typically for delivery. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? I will say this will finish up our large rollouts. Last year, last August was 5,300 Chromebooks we rolled out to high school students. The year before that, it was, oh my gosh, I think it's 7,000 plus. After this rollout, if approved, we will begin looking at replacement on just 2 grade levels apiece through our Chromebook sustainability plan in coordinates with county commissioners, K64. Any
other questions for Mr. Sharp? I do know that with technology, the price tag on that was large, but when you're looking at that many devices, that's one of the things about the lifespan of those. They tend to age out at the same time. So appreciate your diligence in finding the best deal. I'll entertain motions.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion that we approve the purchase of 2,450 Chromebooks at $479 each, with a total of $1,173,550 as presented.
Plus tax.
Plus the tax.
Sorry.
We have a motion and a second. Further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the quote presented by Mr. Sharp, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. These will be ready for next school year?
Yes, lead time is about 4 weeks.
Okay.
So we waited as long as we could to try to get the best device, best deal.
And when they get here, they'll be ready to use?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
They will be.
Marty, thank you again for your work there. Item number 2 on new business is approval for our 3-year quote for Ed Mintum, Mr. Lee Miller.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, board members. So I'm seeking your approval to purchase Ed Mintum. This is a K-8 program and would replace iReady. We've had iReady for the past 3 years, and it was iReady came to us, and part of it was state funded, and we funded a lot of it with ESSER money. It's been a good tool. Teachers like it. However, we cannot sustain iReady for the future. iReady, the similar tools that they provide is roughly $250,000 more dollars than Edmentum. Edmentum is a company that we've dealt with for the past 3 years. They've provided our high school credit recovery courseware. Their customer service has been great. And so as we were looking for a tool to replace iReady, we met with Edmentum. They showed us what they can offer, and it's very comparable to iReady. We brought our teachers in, we brought principals in with a teacher leader so Edmentum could do a demonstration for them so we could show them how comparable they are. The feedback that we got was very positive. Felt like Edmentum does basically the same thing at a much lower cost. We also conducted a survey, a resource survey with our teachers and asked them to rank the different tools that we use based on the impact they believe it has with students. And iReady/Edmentum, because teachers know that we can be replacing iReady with Edmentum, it ranked, more teachers put this tool or a tool like it, i.e. iReady, in their top 5 than any other resource that we use in our district, K6. So that's why we're asking for this. This will be paid for out of textbook funds. We have as a district right now, and Ms. Aldridge, correct me if I misspeak here, but I believe somewhere around $1.5 million in our textbook account. Some of that is in school account, some of it's in our district account, but basically it's all textbook funds that we receive from the state of North Carolina. We receive an additional allotment each year for textbooks. Used to be textbook funds can be paid, can be used for about anything. Now it's very restricted. It's textbooks or online programs like an Edmentum or iReady. So this has not been an easy decision to come to. That's why we had our principals and a teacher leader come in, demonstrated it for them, got feedback, did a resource survey, and we feel like this is our best option for a personalized instruction tool. It is a screener, it does progress monitoring, and it's adaptive, meaning that students will take an assessment and it will start them out where they are and build from there. So if I am on a 3rd grade mathematics level, that's where it would start and we would build from there. If the student beside me is at a 5th grade level, it would start there and build from there. Any questions about Edmentum?
I'd like to ask, were there features with iReady that we went with it to begin with and that we felt like were advantageous?
Yeah, so this was 3 years ago, Dr. Barnett, so I think I'm saying this correctly. The state offered some PRC money as part of it, but we also, I think, had to pay. With ESSER funds, we were able to take on that cost, but now the ESSER funds are no longer available. We can't sustain iReady at the price that it is, plus provide textbooks to our schools. So we had to look for a more economical option.
What's the training for the educators look like for this? Is it going to be?
Great question. We know that for this to be successful, we've got to do the right PD and the training, because I don't want teachers to get into it and say, well, this is not iReady, and within a week they're done. And so we will have face-to-face training, and we also have virtual training that they offer. But the face-to-face will be 2 sessions that they're willing to come out and do with us. Our instructional coaches can be a big help in that, but we know that is a key. I can tell you this, as far as their customer service goes, over the last 3 years, and again, we've had them for our high school credit recovery courseware, they've been second to none with customer service. I feel confident that they will provide the PD we need, and it is part of the expense that you see there. And that expense can be paid for over 3 years. So we're looking at a total cost of I think it's 306 over for 3 years. So some folks don't. One other company that we looked at, they asked for half of it in the first year and then take the remaining 2 years to pay for the rest of it. So with that minimum, we can pay a third each year, which helps us obviously be able to continue to buy some textbooks that we need.
When will the training be done? Will it be on teacher work days or during
It'll
summer? Or?
be in those first 2 weeks of August, we had 2 weeks of work days. So we've already talked with them. If we do go with Ed Minimum, they have days available those 2 weeks. They'll come and here to train.
So it's 3 years as far as they'll go out, because I heard from a couple of teachers that they just really finally got used to iReady really good. And now we're switched. They heard we were swapping it out with something else. And I guess they were a little concerned with, hey, I just got my feet really good under this. Now we're going to go to something else. And this is a 3-year thing. Will they not go to like maybe 5 or something like that?
I'm sure they would, Mr. Salah. They would love, I'm sure, for us to commit to 5 years or more. We said 3. We can look at additional years as well. And I know, I heard the same thing from the teachers. Matter of fact, the teacher that I live with said the same thing. But what we tried to convince them of was, hey, we can't sustain that $500 and it was like $65,000 for a year with iReady. As good as it is, and as good as the data it is that it provides, we can't sustain that when our textbook allotment is just shy of $500,000 a year. It will be over that. So we would not be able to really buy any hard, consumable textbooks if we went with iReady. And I know that bothers me, because I know after 3 years we've kind of it's embedded, but we just can't sustain it.
I think I hear what you're saying. iReady has sort of priced itself out of our ability to consider that as an option.
Yeah, and talking to some other people in our region, they've said the same thing, that they're not able to continue on, or what they're doing is they might buy, their district may be buying licenses for only 25% of their students. I've got a little heartburn over that when you're only providing for 25% of your students. But we have a tool here, we can provide for 100% of our K-8 students. One caveat I do want to mention, Marty and I were approached last week, so this is why this is late coming to you. Khan Academy, which is kind of a nationally known company and does good work. Our legislature, they've got starting to partner with them certain districts. We're a district that was named. We were not aware of this until, again, last week. We were not made aware of this by any legislator. It was Khan Academy. So there's a possibility that 6-8, we could do something with Khan Academy, which would be a fraction of the cost. We would end up saving approximately $35,000 a year on the quote that you see here. So we could come back in June possibly and say, hey, that quote that we were looking at for 3 years, we can actually take about $90,000 or $100,000 off the total quote, because we're going to partner with Khan Academy for 6-8. We just got to find out more. Marty's trying to get those details. We just don't know it yet. But we would like to have the option of either Edmonton or Khan Academy once we find out more details. So the good news is this could be cheaper if Khan Academy works out for us. And I hate there to be that unclear what we're going to do. But again, we just found out about this, and I'm going to go back to Edmonton if the board approves this request and say, hey, we're going to hold off on 6-8 right now, because we have an opportunity through our state legislature possibly partner with another company for much less.
Are there other districts around us that are using Ed Minimum?
Yes, Newton Conover I know is, Hickory, I don't know that they've committed. I know they've considered it. I don't know what their final decision is. We have visited a school in South Carolina, a large high school, Clover, that uses Ed Minimum in this capacity. And it was impressive. And again, what we've done with them to this point with their courseware, we've been very pleased with.
So thank you for the presentation. And again, thank you for, same as with Marty, trying to find the best bang for the buck. Any other comments or questions?
You said we're going to spread the payments out over the 3-year period, Carla? Okay.
And yeah, that number you see there includes the high school courseware, which we've been spending anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000 a year on. So that is absorbed in that price as well.
Any questions?
I make a motion, we approve the addendum for $913,665.03.
Motion and second. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of the quote for Edmentum, signify by raising your hand. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miller. Next, Ms. Thompson will come seeking approval the 2024-2025 draft calendar for Catawba Rosenwald Educational Center.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, Dr. Stover. So I have for your consideration this evening the 24-25 Catawba Rosenwald Education Center calendar. You have already approved their ability to use virtual learning days, and so this calendar reflects those days. They will run on the same calendar that the traditional schools run on, but about every other Friday will be the virtual learning day for students. So they will have, they'll start that in August and run through, so there are 16 total virtual days. They have 167 total student days, 78.5 first semester, 88.5 second semester. What is not on their calendar that's on our traditional calendar are the elementary middle only days, because teachers will have some built-in, the middle school teachers will have some built-in professional development time every other Friday. So those were not included.
Marty, I know you've had a chance to look at this prior. Are there questions?
Are they locked into a calendar like our regular schools are, since they're an alternative school?
They are locked into the start time. Yes.
Start time, okay.
The questions or a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the calendar as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and second. Further comments? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of the 2024 Catawba Rosenwald Education Center calendar, signify by raising your hand. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have Mr. Moore for a bevy of information.
I don't think I've heard that term used with me, but I'm happy to bear it today. Chairman Taylor, members of the board, Dr. Stover, our first item is for information only. It is the Maiden Elementary School General Contingency Summary, the funds that we have used thus far. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Construction Change Directive number 7. I can tell you that number 8 that is listed there is coming back at a reduced price. We'll have that next time. And we do have a number 9 that will be next time as well with regard to terrazzo polishing. But I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this point about this document. Again, it's for information only.
So as we near the completion of that project, Mr. Moore, we have 763,052 left in contingency.
Yes, sir. We've still got a couple coming though. One of them's fairly substantive. It's tied to emergency communications, and another one is tied to some terrazzo polishing. But outside of those two, I don't think we have anything. Well, we have a backflow preventer valve that may come, but right now it's looking pretty good at this point with regard to the funding.
Any questions about the proposal or that's just information?
Just information.
Okay, hearing none, you guess we'll move on to number 5.
Yes, sir. Chairman Taylor, members of the board, Dr. Stover. Construction change directive number 7. It's interesting. We had a walkthrough with our faculty and staff some time ago, and they noticed an area between 2 EC resource rooms and said, what if we could put a door right there to help us be able to monitor between classrooms? And that's what this is. It's actually in rooms 308 and 310, and it will provide a door in those areas, and the cost of that is $3,855 within the project. It has been approved by Dr. Stover, but I would also seek your approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Board,
Make a motion, we approve the construction change directive to add the door Mr. Moore mentioned.
Second.
have a motion and second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of that change order, signify by raising your hand. Mr. Moore, I think that's excellent, getting the faculty do that walkthrough and notice something that obviously don't use the building on a daily basis, you might not see.
Yeah, it was a nice thing. Thank you. Our next item for approval is the bid tabulation for Maiden Middle School's roof replacement. We had multiple bidders to the table. We would ask for your approval of AAR Roofing in the amount of $730,700 for the roof replacement at Maiden Middle School. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Is this the roof with the rocks?
Do we have some ballast down there? We do have a small amount of ballast roof down there.
This would be every.
That's a similar roof to what was at Bunker Hill. Any other questions? Hearing none, I will entertain motions for approval of that tabulation.
We have never used AR Roofing. We did research. They are out of Charlotte, highly reputable company. They do good work. So we feel confident that they will do good work for us as well.
I'll make a motion then that we approve the roof repairs at Maiden Middle School. Proposed by Mr. Moore, I'm sorry.
All right, we have a motion and second. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the roof replacement at Maiden Middle School, signify by raising your hand.
Don't necessarily need the tips information, but that's good information. So the next item is the LED light replacement for the football stadium and track area at Maiden High School. We are asking for the approval of the base bid plus alt 1. The base bid being $197,310, alt 1 being $26,000, for a total of $223,310. We've completed all of our high schools, save Bandy's and Maiden. And once we get these two projects done, all 5 high schools will now have LED lighting at the school. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about this particular proposal, or I could also bundle in the discussion about Bandy's. It is the similar proposal, the base bid being $173,400 with the acceptance of alternate 1, the amount of $26,000 would total $199,400. I'll be happy to answer any questions about this project that you may have.
When would this work be done if approved?
It would be this summer.
Over the summer, okay.
It takes them, we met with the contractor at both schools a couple of weeks ago. It'll take them a week or 10 days. This is what they do. So they'll be in and out fairly quickly. It will be ready by the time football season begins in the fall.
And I know there are different facilities. Is the size of Maiden with the track around it, is that the difference?
It's got a lot to do with it. The number of lamps, the number of fixtures, the lighting, the targeting. If you think about that area, it's quite a bit larger than what we have at Bunker, what we have at Saint, and what we have at Bandy's is much tighter, I guess is the words I would use. Ford was more in our last installation, but it's tied to the size as well. That's the difference there.
I'll entertain motions if there are any other questions.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared then to make the motion that we accept the total request for Bandy's High School, $199,400 as presented. And then the request for Maiden High School for $223,310 as a combined vote.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the stadium lighting at Bandy's and Maiden, signify by raising your hand.
Thank you. Last item is the approval of the contract for the multipurpose facilities building at Bandy's High School. We've already approved the bid amount. So this is just the contract in and of itself.
And this is the facility that the large percentage of is paid for by the state legislature.
Yes.
Mhm.
We got allocation from the state legislature.
Yep.
Other funds to complete this project will come from renovation funds at Bandy's High.
Any other questions about item number 7, the Bandy's multi-purpose building?
I make a motion, we approve the contract for the Bandy's High School multipurpose building.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the approval for Bandy's High School multi-purpose building, signify by raising your hand.
Thank you.
We will now move into skipping, obviously, item number 8, which was removed with our adjustment. Item number 9, approval of amendments, and Ms. Davis has actually grouped these into minor changes, which are 1 through 16, and substantive changes, which are 17 through 31. So I would ask Ms. Davis if maybe we could do the minor changes and then take maybe a 10-minute break before we move into the rest of it.
When I say minor, I mean technical changes. There are the only changes to 1 through 16 of the policies listed there are either in the citation. There might be a word and they, one word changes. might be a correction of a grammar, deletion of the mark. If there are no questions about items 1 through 16, by the way, we're going to see more of that coming to the conclusion. Hopefully, we'll be finished with this policy examination in August. I've got some more substantive ones coming. I wanted to group all these together. The minor and technical changes, 1 through 16. Just if we can, I would ask for a motion to approve 1 through 16 changes together.
I have one question on new business 10.5. I guess it would be the transportation services. It has the numbers in red. Did we just enumerate those, whereas maybe before they were bullet point? Or
Where is that? Which
it's 6.3 thousand goals of student transportation services.
Oh, yeah.
Number 5.
Yeah.
Number 5.
It was just numbering. 6.3.
I just listed those by number, whereas maybe they were in narrative or bullet point.
Yeah. It wasn't added. Yeah. The difference in this policy and what we had before is there were no numbered paragraphs. And all I did was number on my policy.
Yeah, just added them.
There were no substantive changes, just legal references, and those are not new paragraphs.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we approve the minor changes to those policies that are listed as items 1 through 16 in new business item number 9.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Barnett, second by Mr. Abernathy. Any questions or discussion? I was a little bit, I mean, I didn't realize we had a policy on idling of activity buses.
Yeah, those are all state requirements.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of items 1 through 16, the minor changes, signify by raising your hand. It is now at 24 minutes till, so if we could maybe come back at 10 till, give everybody time for a break, and we will move into our next session on the substantive change.
comments back. Oh. We are back in session and, Ms. Davis, will now continue with the substantive changes, items number 17.
I'll just go one by one. Number 17, student fees, charges and fines. The biggest change in that was that a clarification or that no fee will be charged for required courses or activities. That was understood, but it's actually spelled out there. And to the extent funds are made available for this purpose, no registration or exam fees will be charged for advanced placement courses in National Baccalaureate, Cambridge Advanced International Certificate, including AS level or A level courses. And then the other things, the other sections were references to a policy regarding the availability of waivers, fee waivers, and then also in the middle, the superintendent ensures that the schedule of fees, charges, and solicitations approved by the board is published on the website by October 15th. And then the next, and I'll just, if you have a question about each one, just let me know. Next is emergency closings. The substantive changes are that the superintendent adding shall develop procedures for the temporary closing of a school or all schools in the school system because of inclement weather or any other unforeseen occurrence. And that has taken place to some degree with regard to payroll and so forth, and then making up student days. The other significant, substantive changes that in the event an emergency order is for a definite period exceeding 1 week, the superintendent shall notify members of the board before making a formal announcement at the closing. If it exceeds more than a week, it shall be made in consultation with the Board of Education by the superintendent. Next is relationship with law enforcement. Added to this, and this has been part of the state law in the past. Again, remember a lot of policies or most policies are based on laws anyway. Some policies just refer to the statute. Other policies are, I really don't understand the distinction, but some policies actually reiterate what the statute says. And in this case, this has been the law, but the North Carolina School Boards Association has recommended it be placed in a policy, in the policy outline. So it's basically that the superintendent shall ensure that local law enforcement have schematic diagrams, including digital schematic diagrams of all school facilities, and provide them updates with the schematic drawings, and also either keys to the main entrance of the school or updated access to the school building when changes are made to the locks of the main entrance. And Mr. Moore can vouch that we've done that for years and years and years and years. K boxes, is that what they're called? We have something like that. Yeah. The other clarification, which has been the law, but I think there's been unfortunately a pushing of the boundaries in some regard, which is why this recommendation is in there, is a clarification that law enforcement officials should not initiate administrative investigations, and they really shouldn't be a part of it, including whether the students' behavior policies have been violated. They may be used to assist school officials in such investigations for safety or other reasons as determined by the principal or designee. So, but they're not the person you send in to investigate a school administration violation issue. Of course, it clarifies and makes clear that if a crime has been committed, then they have the ability to investigate. And then, I'm sorry. Yes, yeah. Most of those, yes, they're in 288G, and also they're in 115C 288G, and also there are some with regard to child abuse. Yes. Goals of the school nutrition, that's very minimum, and I added the numbering, so I don't know if there's any questions there. All those were recommended by the School Board Association. Same with Organization of School Nutrition Services. Adding the substantive change that the superintendent shall verify that all nutrition services personnel are certified and trained in accordance with the law. That's an example of a reference to the law that's not encapsulated here, but sometimes it's reiterated. Use of transportation services it all comes from state law. All these changes come from state law with regard to transportation department, and you'll see a lot of references to the statutes that require certain procedures to be in place for the use of yellow buses and the special use of them, and also with regard to special needs students. A clarification, the next policy, parking areas for students. A clarification that school officials retain authority to conduct routine patrols of student parking and inspections of the exteriors of the student motor vehicle on school property for any reason without notice or consent. There's further in plain view doctrine that, if there are things in plain view, then we can actually report to law enforcement and searches can be made, and even the administrator can ask that they be allowed to look in the car. Transportation service and vehicle contracts. It states that the added language is that the superintendent or designee shall develop safety standards for contracted commercial bus transportation services used to transport students to school-related activities. And the standards must comply with the requirements established by the state board. What has happened, we have done that. Mr. Moore has connected, I don't know how, but it's online with the principals, our contracted services with state-approved vendors for transportation of students. And next week, next month, or either in June, end of June or beginning of June, you'll see some other policies we've been working on with regard to student transportation. No. And that's only for those groups that are on that list. So we now have an approved vendor list. The next policy, ethics and the purchasing functions. This is an example of how most of these things were set forth in statutes and case law, and now it's codified in our policies. There's nothing in here that's flexible. It's all required and part of the law. There's been a particular emphasis in the last year on conflicts of interest and standards. So there'll be another policy or two, actually some training that's required. I know the board undergoes conflict of interest training, and we'll be starting that with administrators, anybody that's involved in the making or implementation of contracts. The next is contracts with the board. There's not a big amount of of clarification there, just to make some technical changes to the names of the next policy, and also to add the also at the end, also all contracts subject to the E-Verify requirement will contain a provision stating that the contractor and contractor subcontractors must comply with the requirements of Article 2 of Chapter 64, and that's in the E-Verify rules and regs. Next is the pre-audit and disbursement certification. So what's been pretty much the same is the pre-audit certification, and disbursement certification was then added, which Ms. Aldridge has obviously been familiar with. And then exceptions were added to the certification requirements. It states that no pre-audit or disbursement certificate is required for an obligation or a document related to the obligation that has been approved by the local government commission. Again, this was the law anyway. Payroll expenditures included employee benefits or electronic payments made in compliance with rules adopted by the local government commission. The next policy, purchase of services. Again, this is a expansion in our policy of what the law already states, which requires that we can't enter into a contract with a restricted company as listed by the state treasurer in accordance with state law, except as permitted. Also has a provision that states purchases using federal funds must be made in accordance with the terms of conditions of the federal award and applicable requirements. Again, that's always been the case. Contracts entered into with entities or individuals to provide a driver education program must be awarded on a competitive basis through requests for proposals. We no longer contract with an outside agency for driver's ed. And when we did, we of course complied and actually did a request for contracted services anyway, even though services aren't necessarily required to be bid out as other construction issues are. And it exempts contracts relating to architectural engineering, survey, and construction management at-risk services. That's governed by other policies and laws. The next is employee political activities. There, again, these are recommendations from the School Boards Association. It clarifies that just because you are employed or volunteer services with the school system, it does not preclude you, an individual, from participating in political activities such as registering and voting, campaigning for candidates or issues, running for or serving in public office, attending political events. So that is a clarification that was actually reworded from what was there before. The next substantive change is a reference to the official school spokesperson, and it states, as specified in that policy 2.2200, the chairperson and the superintendent or designee are the official spokespersons for the school system. Employees, when exercising their rights as citizens, should take steps to ensure that their personal political activities or opinions are not erroneously attributed to the board of the school system. So that's a limitation clearly on the chairperson or the official spokesperson. It's made clear that this policy shouldn't be construed as prohibiting the impartial study and discussion of political or other controversial issues in the classroom setting, but a reminder that teachers, educators, must be mindful of their responsibility to deliver the curriculum of the school system, and they may not present their personal political views to students in the classroom or when otherwise engaged in instructional of students. Yeah, but serving, and you can't be your own boss, so there would be a conflict. Yep, you got to choose. We've had some retired teachers who became school board members who were substitute teaching that could no longer substitute teach what they were doing. But you can, they can. The next on the list is the deletion of a administrative procedure about the use of an employee credit card. Ms. Aldridge has advised me that we no longer use those. Rather, we're substituting the next administrative procedure, which is a procurement card manual for that administrative procedure. So that is all new, that administrative procedure. It doesn't necessarily require approval by the board. It's something that's been in place through Ms. Aldridge, and probably a lot more safe. So the next two procedures, one is emergency administration of naloxone, and the second is emergency epinephrine auto-injector devices. These are on for first reading. I would ask that they be approved as first reading. I have actually submitted these. They came upon recommendation from the North Carolina School Boards Association, and I submitted them to our liaison, actually to our Director of Student Services, Maria Ballard, also to the county attorney who, as you know, the county actually supplies our nurses, and then to their liaisons. Our school nurses have reviewed these policies and are asking also for approval of them. Again, this comes straight out of the recommendations from the North Carolina School Boards Association, and any availability of these medications to the school system and school nurses has been approved statutorily. And if you have any questions about how this works, they have offered to gladly come to the school board meeting. Again, this is on for first reading, as it requires a second reading, which will be at the June 3rd. I can have, if you anticipate any questions, I can have them come and speak and be prepared to answer any questions for you about how that's housed and administered.
We currently have several school personnel who's already trained in the EpiPen training of, in each school too. So it doesn't just have to be the nurse. Yeah.
Ms. Teague, I'll also point out that with regard to EpiPens in particular and allergies and so forth, as I think it was the last board meeting or the one before that, there was a policy on administering medications to students. That policy addresses that also, and it also addresses students being able to self-administer those medications. So sometimes kids have an EpiPen on them. Yep. And our school nurses are fully aware of all those protocols. We're really lucky with our school nurse that we have so many, that the county supports us with them, and they are all very conscientious. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer those with regard to 17 through number 33. I would qualify that 32 and 33 are just here for first reading, and I'd ask for approval of 17 through number 31.
So, actually, we're not taking any action on the one.
Oh, I thought we did. Yeah. Yeah. We did right before the break. We kind of dispensed with those. Yeah, that's your hamburger talk.
But then we would be looking for action on items number 17 through 31, items 32 and 33. Any questions or feedback on any of those?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we approve those policies that have been, that have substantive changes made to them in number 17 through 29 and 31, that we approve those, and that we delete number 30, the use of employee credit card, and approve the new policies 32 and 33 on first reading.
Okay, did you get all that motion? Okay, thank you, Dr. Barnett, for the motion, and Ms. Steve for the second. Any further comment on the? Hearing none. Then approval of 17 through 29 and 31. And item 32 and 33 on first reading. All in favor of that, please raise your hand. That brings us now to the final item on our opening session agenda, and that is Ms. Davis on discussion on things. To the Thursday, June 3rd. Also on the timeline.
The July meeting date?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see us set the surveys to be done in time that we could consider the superintendent's contract at one of our June meetings.
I mean, I think, putting the survey out so that it can be, like mid-June, allowing us to calculate and maybe see, an evaluation presentation.
I'd like to ask Dr. Stover if that would also give him enough time, that if you intend to bring the assistant superintendent's contracts at that time, if it would give you time for their evaluations to also be done.
Yeah, we started our evaluations today, and yeah.
June 15th. Then that would allow us time to have the data and present to the board. Yep. Everyone in agreement with that? Do we need a motion to that effect? Anybody want to, Barnett or one of you?
Then be presented to us for the June 24th meeting. Ready for you.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and second on the floor. Any further discussion?
I would like to ask, as part of that motion, would that mean we could still consider Dr. Stover's contract on the 24th as well as the assistant superintendent's if he intends to bring those?
Dr. Stover,
Right. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I would agree with that being added to the motion that I made.
I can cover that, Dr. Barnett. So the motion and second relative to superintendent's evaluation, his contract, and possibility of him bringing the contract also on June. Any discussion on that before I call the question? All in favor of that timeline, how about raising your hand? All right, that brings us to the end of open session. We do have need for a closed session, am I correct? Personnel and consideration of land action. So
I make a motion, we go into closed session.
Motion to go in closed session has been made. Second, all in favor? And that's unanimous. So we will give the audience time to clear, and then we will consider ourselves in closed session. Michelle.